Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to do some basic color mixing for all 12 primary, secondary, and tertiary colors, as well as their tints and tones. First, what you will need for this is a cup of water to clean your paintbrushes, some napkins to clean your brushes with, your paintbrushes of course, something to mix your colors with, this can be a stick or your brush, a palette with only red, yellow, blue, and I have a separate palette here for white and black. Since I have red, yellow, and blue, let's start with those. I'm going to dip my paintbrush in the red. You may see that it looks a little goopy, so I'm spreading my paint on the palette a little bit so I don't put blobs of paint down on my paper. I'll do this with just about every color. Carefully, I will fill in my box. I'm using the edges of the flat paintbrush I'm using to help me with creating straighter lines. I will repeat this with yellow and blue. Between each color, I swirl the paintbrush in the water and dry it off by pressing it on a towel off screen to clean it. Now I will do the secondary colors, which are any two primaries mixed together. The color scale helps us to remember which colors need to be mixed together to get the right colors. Since violet is between red and blue, we're going to mix the red and blue together. You always want to start with the lighter of the two colors. If I turn it to grayscale, you can see that the red is the lighter of the colors. With my mixing stick, I'm going to scoop some red over, and then I'll take a little bit of my blue. You can do this with a paintbrush if you don't have any other sticks, but just be sure you clean the paintbrushes really well at the end so no paint gets stuck up in the bristles. I'll mix the color together now. You can watch the magic as the colors combine into one, and the more you swirl it together. Try focusing on a circular motion where you're constantly pushing the paint towards the center of your pile so you don't end up spreading it out too far and too thin. Once happy with the color that you mix, you can add it to your color scale. Remember to clean your brush between colors, and when painting you want to smooth it out so there's no globs of wet paint. Now, with the purple done, let's mix the green. In grayscale again, you can see that clearly yellow is the lighter of the colors. You will always start with the lighter value. I put 3 drops of yellow for every little drop of blue, and that was more than enough to get a very beautiful green. Just like the other colors, I'll add it to my hue scale. Finally, I'll do the same with orange. Now, I still have plenty of paint on my palette here. I'm going to use these colors to mix up my tertiary colors. Red violet, blue green, yellow orange, and red orange. I'm going to mix these on a different plate so I don't mix them all up too much and have some room for my tints and tones later. As you can see for the tertiary colors, it tells you what primary and secondary colors make it up. There are 2 violets, 2 greens, and 2 oranges. So I'm going to make 2 piles of each. Now I will mix every tertiary color based on what primary color is in its name. I'll start with red violet since it's at the top, so I'll mix red into the violet. If it doesn't seem very visible, don't be afraid to add more of that primary color. Next, I'll do blue violet. The difference between red violet and blue violet becomes much more clear. I will continue this pattern of mixing based off the names of the color until I finish my middle hue row. I will note that purple or violet is one of the harder colors to mix, so if it's not looking quite right, don't fret about it. Just do your best. There we have it. The fully saturated hue scale is done. Next, we will mix tints and tones. Along the top, you can see that it has a plus white and a plus gray to help indicate what you need to add to the colors to get the tints and tones. So the first thing you want to do when mixing tones is to mix your gray first. Now it is important that you always start with the lightest color. I've said it 3 times, it's very important you start with the lightest color because otherwise the black just overpowers the other colors. We will separate the white into 2 big piles and make 1 big pile of gray and 1 pile that stays white. Now I'm going to take a drop of black and add it to one of my piles. See, that is how much black I'm adding. I'm not adding much. Go ahead and mix them together until I get gray that is smooth. You can see how strong that black is already coloring the whole thing. You really do not need that much black in order to get a nice gray. Now I can mix this gray and white with each and every one of my colors to create the tints and tones. I don't want to add the white to the color because the color will end up overpowering the white. So I'm going to make sure I put it just to the side of the color and slowly add the color to the white and not the other way around. I'm going to split each of my colors into two so that I have a pile that I can add gray to and a pile that I can add white to. And when I have that, I will mix the colors in to get a tint of my original color and a tone of my original color. Mix them until they are smooth. Now you see I have the original color, the tint, and the tone. Now I can take my paintbrush, dip it in. Hue plus white equals tint, so I will add it to the left box here. Then I can also go ahead and add the tone to the other side. Both the tint and tone should look like red, but they should both clearly look like different values of red. The rest of this process is pretty repetitive, so I will speed up the rest of the video as I explain some things to keep in mind. Number 1, always start with your lightest colors when mixing. Add little bits of dark color at a time until you get the color that you want. Number 2, it may be good to do one hue at a time, so doing the tint, the brightest hue, and the tone of, say, red at once. And then move on to the next color so that you're not mixing too many colors at a single time. I did it in the video as an example, but you may need to do this over a few different class periods depending on your personal pace. Number 3, remember to put the colors in order, because it makes it easier to remember which colors you need to mix next. Number 4, when painting on the paper, you don't want too many globs of paint. Make sure you only use a little and spread it out thinly. And number 5, don't rush. Experiment with the colors and how they mix. Take note of how much one color you put in versus the other. In the video, you can see me do all my color mixing first and then painting at the end. Do what is easiest for you when it comes to your own process, and have fun with color mixing.